Okay, we're just getting started. We're gonna get started in a few minutes. We're just waiting for our guests to join us. But welcome. If you're popping in now, go get your cup of tea, your water, your lunch, whatever you need to get comfy to join us. And just gonna pray that technology works today. So hang in there. I should have had some music in the background or something for us to bop to. Oh, okay, there's Erin. Okay, go live. It says you're unable to join, Erin. Let's try again. So, oh. No, it's declined. Let me see if I can add you this way. Okay. We're just trying to get the tech organized, so bear with us. We've never done this before. Well, I've never done an Instagram live with somebody before. Yay, there we go. Okay, let's see your beautiful.
Hey, this is so neat. I've never done this. My head is half cut off, right? Or is that just from... Yeah, there we go. There I am.
There we go. And you've got baby Ronan.
I've got Ronan. I've got Tyler on hand, potentially, if he gets out of hand. We're in Cypress's room, which is like full of color and texture, so he has a lot to look at and be stimulated by.
So beautiful. I love the forest behind you too. That's so nice.
It's all a theme.
Yeah. Wait one more minute so we can catch those people who are going to join us. But yeah, I'm really glad this technology is working.
Did you Google how to make it work, or you've done this before?
No, yeah. I've never done live like with somebody before. So
yeah.
And you never know. You never know with this stuff. I feel like, especially on days where there's all this energy of like how important it is to do this work and how excited we all are to do it. Usually, knock on wood, something happens to make it complicated.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna like hold the space that it's gonna work.
Yeah, and I was
okay. Well, why don't we get started?
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I saw that you had written that there's 14 women, but it's a 12-day thing. What's up with that?
We had so many people that were interested, and I felt so bad saying no. And like, there was one mom who was like, I'll make it up like any day, anytime. Like, she really wanted to participate.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I have an idea. Let me see if I can just add a couple more people into the 12 days.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to there's 2 days, I think the 13th and the 17th. We'll have a 12 p.m. live, so we'll take a break, and then we'll meet again at 12 p.m. at the next story.
Okay. Right on.
I was like, can't say no.
Yeah.
Okay. Especially when they're excited.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was available when I was pregnant, so thank you for doing this.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for being the first as well. It's going to be, so I have a little bit of housekeeping, so it could be a little bit of a gong show. We've got a chatty baby.
I'm going to call Tyler. Tyler! Pass off the baby. He's already too much. He's already distracting and adorable.
But it's hard as moms to, I mean, that's part of why we're doing this, right? So we have this project, I guess, that I threw together, which is the 12 Days of Birth Stories, where we're having moms come on and talk about them. Because we need that space, right? We need to have, like, you and I have talked about your birth before at the Radical Mother, but it just doesn't feel ever like enough time, you know? So
yeah, we're trying to talk in between children often.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping this is supportive to you to share both your stories or whatever comes up today, and to have that space to like actually get real sentences, full sentences out with a million interruptions, right?
All right, the father is here.
Yay, thank you, Tyler. Teamwork.
Yeah. There we go. I had no idea how Ronan would be, so clearly a no-go.
He's just
he's inquisitive. Tyler.
Bye, buddy.
Bye, Ronan. Hey, get out of here. All right, now I can focus. Totally can focus.
Yay. Perfect. So yeah, so we might have interruptions. I've got two big dogs back here that like to bark really loudly, so just heads up that that might happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought your story was going to be really interesting. So do you want to talk about, do you want to introduce yourself and then talk about, I guess, start with, yeah, who you are, what you do, because I think that's fun. And then how you decided to even navigate where you were going to give birth, because that's, the space is really interesting in this story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I guess like I'll start off by saying I can't say I was someone who really thought I would have kids necessarily. It wasn't like something I grew up thinking I'm going to have a family. I don't think it was really necessarily a focal point conversation with my parents, nothing like that. So that wasn't at the forefront of my mind whatsoever. I can't say that I dated a ton or anything. So I was even like in my early 20s and I'm like, maybe I won't even have a partner. I don't know. I felt like such an independent person because I started to explore and did like a bit of the alternative thing post high school. So I decided not to go to university. And I actually went to California and I took a program there when I was 18, 19 years old. So whenever you're done high school, I think I was 20 actually. I was 20. And I took a culinary course in California and it was very niche.
Right.
It was raw vegan because I was raw vegan at the time.
Oh,
And
very
as much
Californian.
as much as I like look back thinking I can't believe I even got into that way of life, it also led to my way of life now.
Yeah.
Because California is full of a plethora of health advocates,
Yeah.
farmers, like hippies, basically. So
Yeah.
that was kind of like what eventually led me into what I do now, which is farming. And somewhere in between there, I met my partner, Tyler, who was a tradesman. And we were friends for multiple years. I wasn't necessarily even, I didn't even have a crush on him. He was a friend. And it transitioned into falling in love because we had traveled together with other friends. And it was during that travels that we fell in love because he saw that I was into foraging. He saw that I was into nature, and it was obviously something that he needed in his life. And so that sparked our love a bit deeper. And then we did eventually become a partnership. And yeah, we were together for a couple of years, and kids never really were a thing until I had friends in my life that were pregnant and had kids.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I feel like that is something that just rubs off on you, especially when you feel comfortable and like when you feel safe. And my body obviously felt like this is a safe man. This is who I want to have these kids with. And anyways, that led to having our children. And yeah, so now we live on a farm and we've been here 8 years. There's a lot more I can get into.
What's it called? Where's your farm? What's it called?
Called Foragers Farms. Y'all are on our account now, so thanks for following us. Or maybe they're on your account. I'm not sure how this works. I guess some of them could be your followers.
They can discover both of us. Mutually beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're based out of north of Coburg. Nessa's in Peterborough, so that's how I met you, through our Peterborough Farmers Market. You were our CSA member a couple years ago. Yeah. And yeah, so I guess I could get into, if you want, how we ended up here, because I could get into some pretty big details if you want or not.
Yeah, well, I love that you said that your body felt safe with Tyler. I think that's really interesting. That you guys hadn't really, again, like your love really grew out of friendship and out of like shared values and interests. Doesn't always happen that way when we make babies, but I think it's a really cool story to share. And like the fact that you weren't sure and your body was probably like, even if that was a potential, your body was like, not the right time until I feel safe with this person to like create. And also that you had that community. I thought that was really interesting. It's like you witnessed what motherhood was looking like, what fatherhood was looking like in your community. And then you're like, okay, this feels like something that we could do. I really like that.
Yeah, like in hindsight, looking back on it, I actually think I was slowly preparing to have kids in this strange way without knowing it, because I was really focusing on my health and really trying to, like, part of my health journey was my period, and wanting to get off of birth control when my
Right.
doctor had me on it for a few months. So that just led me down a rabbit hole of like, yeah, I went off birth control, talked to that same doctor again, like, I want to stabilize my period. The doctor just said, go on birth control again. I said, that's not what I'm looking for. Then I kind of delved into naturopathic doctors, and then that led me down that whole rabbit hole, which eventually led me to raising pretty naturally amazing, healthy babies and having natural births, luckily.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, having a farm that we grow organically. So it's all connected somehow.
Yeah, so how did that, so you got pregnant and then were you already considering like where you were going to give birth before you got pregnant? Did you have a good sense of what you wanted to do, or did that also kind of build as you discovered each month, what pregnancy had in store for you?
Yeah, the whole Yurt birth thing, like it, I don't know, like I guess,
Because you
yeah,
guys were
when I was
living
pregnant,
in the yurt, right?
what's that?
You guys were living in the yurt when you were
Yeah,
pregnant?
because we were
Okay.
living there, and like I really, yeah, I didn't think anywhere else. I really felt like this, why would I go anywhere else? I didn't think it would be questioned. I didn't think it would be odd. Like the yurt just felt like our home, but I didn't really realize it at the time. But everyone thinks like, there's gonna be the people who are intrigued by it, and then there's gonna be the people who are like, shit, that sucks. You must be in that situation
Mm,
for some weird reason, Like there's people who have their
right.
opinions on it. We lived in the yurt on this property because it was our starting point here, and
Hmm.
it's actually what allowed us to get to where we are today, because we made some uncomfortable sacrifices, which ended up actually making us stronger people.
Yeah.
But when I was pregnant, absolutely, my first mind went to like, there's nowhere else I'd want to do this in nature. Oh my goodness, in my home in
Yeah.
nature. And I did happen to have a midwife friend at the time, and still she's my friend. So she was kind of like my reference point to kind of be like, hey, like, what are your thoughts on this? And
Yeah.
her midwifery experience is she goes way up north, or she was going way up north, and was helping off-grid births all the time. So she was actually probably the best person to have in my life, because she really advocated for me and any doubts I even
Yeah. That's an amazing
wavered
friend to
through
have.
my head.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that was a very secure feeling, and the fact that Tyler, my partner, is so gung ho on all things nature. He likes challenges. He's got that strong, safety. I don't know. He's just like very capable with situations. So
Mm,
there was
pretty
no doubt in my mind
grounded
that he
fella.
would be up for it. Hmm?
He's a pretty grounded fella.
Yeah, yeah, like people, you can see it, right?
Hmm.
So, I mean, I didn't think anything else. It also helped that I was living in a bit of like a community situation. Like we had neighbors who are friends, so I
Right.
I had that comfort of knowing if there was any emergency, they're there. My dad wasn't too far. He was in Port Hope, and also I don't know, maybe this is important to some people, especially with their first birth. I knew the hospital was only 15 minutes away, so
Yeah.
it all kind of was
You had a
aligning.
plan. You had a way to, you navigated with your midwife friend. You had like a touching stone. And then you were like, okay, if we change our mind, we have these options. Like we have people we can call in for support, but we can also go to the hospital because it's very close to us.
Yeah, yeah. And like the midwives did request a backup point, so a plan B location,
Okay.
because the timing of Cypress's, we're talking about the first birth because I have two sons. So the timing of my first son, Cypress, his birth was in March. So that weather could be, yeah, like super, super
Mhm.
snowy or super, super
Wet
lovely.
spring.
So yeah, so and it was the end of March too, so it's such a hit or miss time, and it happened to be a clear night, because my water broke in the night, and so the requests from the midwives were, if it's nighttime, go to your plan B. But
Right.
the way my birth panned out, it happened very quickly, and I'm not sure how it would have gone had it not gone so quickly. Like maybe I would have considered going to the plan
Mhm.
B location, but I just right
Okay.
away got in my zone, and the contractions and labor was picking up quite quick, and by the time I called the midwives, which wasn't even that long into my labor, she came to where I was because I told her I can't go anywhere. Like I felt like it was coming soon. She came and I was like 8 centimeters dilated. So
Wow.
I kind of,
Okay, wait.
yeah,
Let's back up a little
we're
bit.
going too quick.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big jump. Okay, so how did you, because you're in a yurt, do you also have no power? Like set the scene for us as to
So
how did you prepare your space
like
to give birth
actually
there?
up until this point we didn't have power. We had solar panels. So I mean we
Mm-hmm.
did have power, but we didn't have on the grid power. It was off grid power. And but because of the time of year and because of this was the midwife's request, they needed to know there was a reliable source of power. So we ran a huge extension cord from the neighbor's house.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was basically just to provide lighting, because at the very least they needed like a good source of light for when the baby arrives. I mean, if I was doing a free birth, I feel like I could totally manage no light. Like, you know, it's a whole different
Yeah.
situation. But that wasn't what I was choosing. And I, of course, I wanted to accommodate my midwives. Like, I had a great experience with my midwives, and I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to work with them, not against them. So, and like vice versa, they were willing to work with me to do this thing that was already kind of out of their comfort zone. And it's just fair. Like, our yurt wasn't on a plowed road or anything. Like, it's pretty off the beaten path. So that was already uncomfortable for them to be like lugging down their huge midwife bag. So part of the request too was to set up lighting, like twinkle lights,
Mm-hmm.
so that they could see how to get down, and to have a on
Five.
hand,
Yeah.
yeah, and to have an on hand vehicle of some sort. So we have like this little farm vehicle that can handle riding in snow and mud.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also needed a stretcher on hand. So our neighbors happened to have a stretcher. So we had like these things set up for them and their comfort.
That's amazing.
And like at the very least, this off-road vehicle would be able to transport me from the yurt to where a ambulance would be. So
Yeah.
that was their
Yeah.
main
Yeah.
concern, and lighting. And so our
The
toilets,
compromise
yeah,
was like, we'll meet you where you want to go. This isn't our norm. This isn't our preferred plan,
yeah,
but you have come to us. I think something that's really interesting about your experience. So the area that we live in, you know, you live on a farm, but it's not like a super rural area where there's not access to things.
yeah,
So I would say the midwives, you know, they're used to hospital birth for the most part. So this is out of their comfort zone, but their compromise was like, provide us with the emergency exits that we need in case of emergency, and we'll meet you where you want to go.
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit, before we talk more about like the setup of the yurt, can you talk a little bit about how you had those conversations and how you had them as conversations, not confrontations? Because I think that'd be really helpful. And you're so grounded in your approach anyway to life, but I think that would be really supportive for people too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I might have talked to you about this before. I don't know, but like I've had people in this area, because I'm sure maybe some people who end up watching this have had these midwives even. It's a small area, so I've had hearsay of bad experience with certain midwives and good experience with certain midwives. And my whole approach to pregnancy in general is to just focus on myself, focus on the good. So that's kind of how I panned this into play. And yeah, regardless of like maybe how close-minded they are to certain things, I mean, any midwife probably, this is very out of, it would have been very out of the norm for any midwife, let alone like all these other things that people are saying about these midwives. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like, yeah, the way I approach those situations is I try to meet them halfway, try to talk respectfully,
Mm-hmm.
just as I would hope they would to me back. And like, uh, yeah, I don't know. I just brought it up because it's a way I brought it up, my gentleness, my niceness. Not like so self-righteous, like, F you, I'm doing this. Like, very much like, this is what I would like to do. How can we make it work? And also, yeah, bringing in some research and confidence. Confidence helps, I would think.
Confident. Yes.
I felt very
Okay.
confident. Yeah, I definitely felt like I could do this. And I don't know if they can read that off of a mother. I'm sure they get nervousness off of mothers. I wouldn't doubt that. They've worked with lots of mothers, and I don't think they felt that at all with me. Like, my midwife appointments were very much in and out. Like,
Okay.
most of the time they'd be like, do you have any questions? I'd be like, no, not really, because I'd be doing my own research. I'd have friends that I'd be picking their brains about. Um, but yeah, I mean, they didn't challenge it too much. It was mainly the things I was saying earlier. Yeah, like the safety things, the lighting, running water was another thing
Okay.
that, because like, washing their hands. So we ran a hose down. That was also the water that was going to fill our bath. So
Mhm.
that's the other
Like
thing I
your
gave.
birth.
Yeah, my pool. Sorry. Yeah. So, and then they needed a bathroom, and we had a compost toilet that was like 10 feet from the yurt, which they were okay with for
Amazing.
themselves, but they were more so concerned about me post birth. So I had a friend build a little makeshift indoor toilet. It was literally like a boxed in bucket.
Yeah,
So,
like a commode or whatever that they would call that in the Western medicine world.
yeah, which I'm very thankful for in the end, because yeah, like post baby, depending on your experience, isn't always the easiest to walk. So um yeah, I was able to just get out of my bed, walk to the door, which is where we kept the little toilet thing, and then walk back and do my thing.
Okay. Okay. So you had a toilet made, you had twinkly lights, you had a birth pool, you got the power hooked up and the water running. What else did you have to do to prepare your space?
So the hose that ran from the hydrant to the yurt area, which actually ended up being running towards where our fire is, because we had to heat the water as well.
Right. Oh my goodness, so much work. Oh, we've lost. Oh, there we go.
There
You're
you go.
back.
Yeah. Tyler had he was the firekeeper, so Tyler had a whole setup. He did like the whole A-frame hanging a huge pot over the water setup. So
Oh,
at the top of the hill there was the hydrant, and this is probably like 30 feet, 40 feet away. So part of managing this was also making sure the hose wasn't frozen, so we had to keep the hose inside, or at least make sure it was very dry, so we didn't use it at
yeah.
all for months ahead. I think we bought a brand new hose. I think that was the request by the midwives, actually, buy a brand new hose.
Yeah, I think most people do that.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is fair, because there's absolutely like gunk can build up in hoses. So we made sure to get a new hose, and it was just a matter of not using it and making sure water wouldn't be frozen in it.
Hmm.
um, yeah, obviously prepping water for the fire, having multiple buckets on hand to then dump the boiling water into the buckets for Tyler to then carry the buckets into the yurt to then dump into the pool.
And
And then yeah,
he likes that role, right?
yeah, oh man, yeah, I didn't realize it at the time. I mean, it's also thankful because my friend was there too to hold my hand. I had hired a friend to kind of be like a doula. So she
Mm.
was there. She actually was a doula in training. So she just offered her time. I guess she didn't. Doula in training, does that require hours in order to become certified?
Trainings.
Okay,
Yep. Yep. You have to
so
do,
that's that.
like practicum
Yeah,
birth.
so that's what she was doing at the time for me, and I think she came in just like at the perfect time. Tyler was like, the pool was half full, and she was just there in time once I got into the pool to hold her hand during like the most intense laboring
Mm.
periods.
Oh, you went quiet. Hold on a second. We lost your voice.
It's because my dad keeps calling me. I have to tell
Oh,
him to stop calling me.
Dad. It's
He's
not the
driving.
time yet.
It is the worst time, Dad. And he'll keep calling and calling and calling, I'm sure. And so yeah, Tyler was like, he had a purpose, and I think that helped kind of ease my mind and therefore ease him. And so there was just like an overall just like general sense of ease, at least in my mind. I don't know what was going on in all their minds, but I felt very calm. I felt very much in my zone and stayed.
Diana, if you did any like hypnobirthing or like what kind of, because you talked about being in the zone, which I think is really crucial for women doing like outside of the norm births, but also birth across the board.
Yeah,
Did you do any preparation for your mind for this
I
experience, especially
did.
with,
Yeah,
yeah?
I did. Luckily, there was a hypnobirthing practitioner in the area at the time. I'm friends with her now, and she's no longer one, so I don't know if there is any like directly in my area. And like a lot of the stuff she went over, I kind of knew in many ways. I had done
Mm.
yoga for many years. So like a lot of it was familiar terms and practices I had already done. And I don't know, my life was at like a very different point than it is now, for sure. Like we were renters, we were like stress levels were lower in life versus my second pregnancy. Like we own a farm, like life is so different. 6 years makes a huge difference, but I still had a great second birth, which we can get into if we have time. But um, yeah, like my nervous system was just like super strong and
Mm.
I felt invincible basically. I just like
Wow.
was on this high, this big high going into the birth. And yeah, the hypnobirthing for sure
Um,
helped. I would I would not give that like yeah, absolutely it helped. Even though I have this background of yoga and all
so you felt invincible. I've never heard anyone say that.
that.
That's so interesting. I love that. So you're
Yeah,
just like, yeah, I can do this no matter what. Like the doubts weren't there was no doubt for you that this was going to happen and that you were going to do
I had a
this.
really strong practice of positive thinking. Yeah. Oh yeah. And it helped that I had the friends in my lives who gave birth at home as well successfully.
Mm.
And I think like they're mindful to not share any sort of scary things that could have happened to them because I'm sure there's always like a little thing that you don't want to share with someone who's pregnant. And I always appreciate that. Like, of course, my mind was aware of the fact that anything could go wrong at any minute, but I strongly believe, yeah, the power of thought and intention, and um, yeah, it was great.
Sounds really powerful for you, for sure. Sounds amazing. And I think that's a really important point that it takes like you had years of prep unbeknownst to you coming up, to support you in this birth. And then you chose intentionally to work with hypnobirthing to further that journey of, staying positive, staying in your zone. That's really cool. I love that. That's important
Yeah,
to
I think it's
hear.
like huge foundation of it is safety, and yeah, for sure, safety and groundedness, and yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so now let's go back to what you said. So Tyler's doing the fire, and then your friend shows up, and then I forget what happened next.
So, well, even before that, so my actual birth, so my water broke first. It was on my due date. It was March 21st. So my due date was the 21st. It was 9 o'clock at night, and I was getting like a little bit of hip tension, of course. So Tyler gave me a little hip massage in bed, and right when he was done the massage, my water broke,
Oh, wow.
and I put on my diaper. And at that point, we had already had the birth pool pumped up. We knew we
Mhm.
had already, like, with being like not fully on the grid, like we'd have a few challenges. So we wanted to be or I wanted to be as organized as possible. I remember the whole week ahead being, or like 2 weeks ahead, even being like, I think we blew up the pool 2 weeks ahead. Like I'm pretty sure the pool was in the middle of the earth for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like that was just a nice feeling to have that ready. Um, and yeah, so my water broke and I went in the zone. I just remember going in the zone. So the fire was already going because it was March and cool evening in the yurt. So fire was roaring, and I right away had my big ball, and my first reaction was to hover over the ball because I was getting the lower back contraction or labor contractions. And so I was doing that for like a good hour and keeping track of my breath. And I think while I was doing that, Tyler was already on it. He was already starting the fire outside. He was already running the hose down.
Amazing.
So it's like I was able to get in the zone that much easier because I didn't feel like someone was kind of hovering me, Like I'm sure that could
Or
cause.
waiting for instruction. Like, what do I do? What do you want me to
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, he
Mhm.
already had his purpose, and I had my purpose, which was to focus and birth this baby. And I absolutely focused and just made sure to stay on my breath, made sure not to be pulled out of the space I was in, which was
Um,
focused.
so, yeah.
Yeah, the zone. I don't know how else to describe it. And
I feel like that is like entering the portal of birth.
I
You're like,
felt in a different dimension. I
yeah.
definitely felt in a different dimension. Yeah. Yeah.
It
And
sounds like cuckoo if you've never if you're not like a spiritual person or into meditation, but I feel like that's the best way. It's just this otherworldly, like inside your body, but also outside of your body kind of experience.
It was very much, yeah, in out, in out. Because like there was the odd time I was opening my eyes, so my eyes were mostly closed. Looking back on it, uh,
I
yeah,
resonate with that.
yeah, I think that helped me focus a lot. Because
Mm-hmm.
especially once like the midwives come in and then my friend, and it is quite easy for your eyes to create thoughts in your head. So if you can close those thoughts out, that's helpful.
Yes, so good.
Yes,
Such a good, mhm.
and
Love it.
so it was, yeah, it was the time to call the midwife. I had been laboring for 2 hours in front of the fire and it was picking up. I think I might have called the midwife an hour and a half in, and she could tell, yeah, she could tell I wasn't like overly worried or panicky or anything. I was describing that my timing was what it was to the point to call her. I forget what the timing is. And on the phone, she was like, okay, well, I'll be there in about an hour, because she could tell I wasn't in like dire need of her, and I guess like she would have been there right away if she felt that. And I think that helped because yeah, I was able to get in the zone that much more. And so at that point it would have been like 3 hours in, and I don't think I was in the birth pool yet. So by the time she had arrived, she checked my dilation. I was 8 centimeters dilated, and
Amazing.
by that point I think that was when I went in the pool. And yeah, they were pretty hands off. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they do the pulse check, right? And what else do they do? They do,
They monitor your heart rate, baby's heart rate,
like, it
and
was so hands
probably
off that I didn't even really notice. So,
I
but
think because you're 8 centimeters. So what I like in my experience as a doula, they know you've got it. You've made it this far. You're so
true.
close,
Okay.
and they're like in their mind yeah, like they trust you based on that evidence of like she's made it all the way this far. We can
That's cool.
just let her keep doing her thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I vaguely remember because there was, yeah, the main midwife and the backup midwife arrived, and she was kind of sitting on the couch on the outskirts talking to me and kind of coaching things here and there. There was a point in time where she noticed that my breathing wasn't coming from like a certain area. And that was like
Right.
right when the baby was crowning or before the baby was crowning. And so I kind of changed where my, I don't know if it was the, yeah, it was like the breathing and the moans. So she kind of hinted at
Mm-hmm.
changing where my moans were coming from, and that made a difference. So the tension in my body kind of
Yes.
shifted. Yeah. And yeah, I guess like in between there, like when I was in the birth pool, I also we happened to have like a yoga silk in the center of our yurt.
Mm-hmm.
And so I purposely set the pool up in the center of the yurt so that I could also hang on to that. And I think
Yeah.
that ended up being very helpful in the end because I was having back contractions because my first Cyprus was the sunny side up thing. So Tyler was doing the whole back pressure thing,
Yep.
and I was doing the whole like, yeah, pulling of the,
Gravity. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Back labor is basically like baby's not positioned in the most ideal
ideal.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the emphasis is on the wrong syllable, like they're putting pressure on sort of the wrong area of your pelvis. And yeah, those things would help create space, and the gravity would help him move into hopefully a better position because back labor is so uncomfortable.
Yeah, like although it was uncomfortable, I very much believe that, yeah, your body is sending out these certain hormones to prepare you for this discomfort
Yeah.
and whatever's coming your way. So I did not feel defeated at any point, luckily.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel exhaustion because it was pretty quick. Whereas with my one with Ronan, my second born was a little bit longer, and I was actually starting to feel a little bit of exhaustion near the end. And he came fairly quick too, I guess, comparatively. Like Ronan was 8 hours, my second, and then the Yurt birth was 5. And,
Wow, those are quick. Yeah, not the norm, I would say. Yeah.
but even like the eight, I was surprised that even at 8 hours, I was like, I was feeling it. I was exhausted.
Yes, of course. It's hard work no matter what. And it's all like subjective, right? Norm is just another word for the average person's experience. But I would say those are quick compared to the average. But for you,
Yeah.
it's relative to your journey and your experience. So
Yeah.
okay. you had the silks going, you changed your breath, and that was supportive to like pushing stages.
Yeah, that and squeezing my friend's hand. She like literally came at the perfect point because she was coming from way up in Lindsay and we're down here in Coburg and it was she has two kids as well. So she kind of had to like call the babysitter. Babysitter came and then she was able to go. I think she was actually on a date when I called her. So but I was so thankful because she was the one who ended up taking a few of the photos. Like we went, I had a photographer organized who was a friend nearby, and they were like totally willing to just like sleep in their car if they needed to. Because I was
Wow.
texting them saying like, "Hey, it might be the night. I'm not sure. I'll let you know." And then that was all they heard from me. But the next day they had said like, "Hey, we'll come and sleep in the car if you want." Da, 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 da. But I'm happy in the end that I didn't have a photographer because I think I would have felt a little overwhelmed or maybe it would have taken me out of
Mm.
my zone. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't have.
It's interesting to think about what each woman needs in her birth experience, like the people who are there, what they're doing, but you also don't know if this is your first baby. Like, you don't know how you're going to feel. You don't know if you're going to be okay with that. And I think it's part of that prep work that you can do is like the self-discovery of when I'm uncomfortable or when I'm experiencing discomfort, what do I require for support?
Yeah.
And like, do I struggle with being witnessed?
Yeah.
Am I a people
Yeah.
pleaser? Because if you're a huge people pleaser, then all those, people you don't, if there are people you don't really know, like maybe a birth photographer you hired off the internet,
Yes.
you're going to go into people pleasing mode. And
Yes.
the body actually like will shut it down instead of,
Absolutely.
so yeah,
Yeah.
that really, really can impact
I
the
actually
length.
I noticed that a bit with my second birth versus my first because my first was at nighttime.
Mhm.
And I think your body is also able to go into that much more of a relaxation mode at night.
Yes, 100%. Dad, stop calling.
Whereas with the second was during the day, and I felt like you're more exposed. You can see a lot more. Um, so I think that like you're that much more vulnerable. Like, yeah, when you have these midwives there, like not that I think it was a very subtle thing for me, but I did notice like, there's this like extra sense of like not pressure, but like there's people waiting on me in a way, essentially. Like I know this is their job, but
They need
yeah,
you for something. Like they needed they needed the heart rate, they needed you to turn a certain way. It's true. Like even though they were very hands off, if they were still monitoring
yeah,
you, in my experience, your experience, they do try their best to like just follow. Well, I think good midwives try their best to just go with whatever position mom's in and be as, least interruptive as possible.
yeah,
But sometimes they're like, can you move? Because we need to document this heart rate. And
yeah,
so, yeah, they do interrupt the
yeah,
process.
yeah. I mean, like, yeah, especially when you know that they have like so many other women out there who are birthing, and like you also want to be considerate of like the midwife's time. So yeah, maybe this is like a sense of people pleasing because I mean it's not like I really changed that much for my second birth because of it, but um yeah, it's just something I noticed.
It's an element of it for sure. And we shouldn't have to think about that because it's such a transformative, life-changing, like never experience this thing ever again the same way. Even though you have two babies, they're very different experiences.
Yeah.
But it's the midwife's job, like two different worlds coming together
Yeah.
for different reasons.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Did anyone else ask questions? I see someone said there.
And also had back labor,
Oh
and
yeah.
Kayla loved the advice. And I think like what you said about seeing is really interesting. Closing your eyes. I also remember doing that in my birth. Um, and how women feel safer at night to go into labor. And I think most birth workers would agree that's when most people start getting contractions because yeah, you are you've trained yourself to relax at that time.
Yeah.
But also I think it's part of that like going inward portal experience. The darkness is so supportive of going inward, right?
Yeah.
That's what we do in wintertime. It's darker, can spend a lot more time instead of socializing in summer and being out there and yes, being with a bunch of people. Now we're called to go inward. And I think that's a huge part of the power in that. What was the word that you used in the
Zone?
beginning of how you felt?
The zone?
No, like not infallible, but
Oh, oh, invincible?
invincible.
Invincible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you're supported by the darkness in that feeling as well.
Yeah, I guess I should also share that like there even years before being pregnant, years before meeting Tyler, like from like quite a late like teen age, I developed thinking like mantra, like I because of
Mhm.
yoga, I think. But I had a mantra in my head for many, many years. There's always the same mantra, and I'm not gonna share because it's like my own little private little secret mantra, but it's an empowering one. It makes you feel good, it makes you feel strong. So like it's literally like years of me thinking this mantra and the power of thought,
Wow.
and that's part of hypnobirthing too, like the power of thought
Yeah.
and intentional words. So anyways, my mantra came into play for sure during moments, and like yeah, people could have like a strong word that grounds them and kind of hooks them back into where they should be, then yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so cool. I'm gonna be processing that. I'm thinking about that for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I guess
Okay,
like
so
real quick too, like I had plans to do a bunch of things too. Like you say, you don't know it's your first birth. So I had plans to like do like scents in the air, like incense, like all these like music,
yeah, so
certain
I was just gonna
lights. Like
okay.
yeah, I definitely had a few other plans, but Tyler had asked at the moment, and I was like, no, 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 no. Keep it simple. No.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it did happen that quick though. So maybe if it was like a quicker one, maybe my mind would have tried to grip other tools. Like maybe some music would help. I don't know. Maybe it would relax me more. But then also like how much do you want to rely on these outer body things versus your own self? You know. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have tools in our toolbox that we can reach for. But I think what's really beautiful about your story is that it's inspiring to believe that no, you have all the tools within, right? We don't need these external tools. They can be supportive, but the
yeah,
goal in our birthing experience and like what birth really I think teaches you is that the power is within.
yeah.
And obviously we're gonna get to you birthing Cypress, but like yeah, I guess walk us through the actual part of birthing him and then like how you felt after. I'm curious.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I just got pulled that much more into the zone. I definitely like my zone went from like this like mind womb connection to like solely womb, like solely
Mhm.
crown. Once the head is there, like you're just like focusing on breathing there and just like staying relaxed there is what I remember. I did a whole lot of moaning, loud moans, which is when the midwife was like, okay, switch that up. I was,
Do you think your moans were high
they were too high.
in
Yeah.
pitch? Yeah.
Yeah, they're
And
too
then
high.
she probably said bring them down low.
Yeah, even with this, my second home birth, it was the same thing. She had suggested this was a different midwife, even same team but different midwife, and she said the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I appreciated that because that's not something I think I would have thought of at all. So I was thankful for that. And um, yeah, so I was in the position of leaning more forward, holding on to the, you can't really see me, but yeah, leaning forward, holding on to the silks. So baby came, Cypress came from behind where Tyler and the midwives were.
Yeah.
And Tyler, I think like right in that moment, the midwife said, do you want to catch him? We hadn't even had this conversation. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why. But Tyler's like, yeah. So that Tyler ended up catching Cypress, and then they weaseled him, maneuvered him around me, and then we did the skin to skin. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm missing some information in between there. I don't know what else happened, man. Like the baby came out.
That people didn't fall in the pool. Did you push for a long time? Was it like a couple of
Okay,
pushes?
that's a
And
good
you were
question.
drowning.
It was probably about a half hour of like, okay, okay, he's coming, and then okay, okay. Like I forgot what the proper terminology for that. But there was a few
Women often have
waves.
those rest, yeah, like a huge rest in between, so that
Yeah,
your body can physically gear up that energy. And sometimes even people sleep in between contractions, whereas before they were like out of the, it could have been out of their minds with the overwhelming feeling of a baby coming out of your vagina.
yeah. I was definitely
And
like in
all
the
of
resting,
yeah.
definitely the resting, and even with my second, before the huge grand finale, yeah, I had a huge rest before the last contractions and waves and pushing and moaning, mostly moaning. It's like all those combined is what allows the baby to come out.
And we have a question. Did you feel an overwhelming urge to push, or do you feel like your body did it without you controlling it, like that fetal ejection reflex? What was your experience with how your
Um,
body was and you were working out
it
the
was,
vagina?
I would say, more the fetal side. I feel like with my second was more the urge. Yeah, I think the first was Cypress was more the feet. Like I certainly push though, so maybe not. I,
Do you
yeah,
remember actively like pushing with contractions versus like this is just happening?
I don't know. No, not necessarily though, because like I feel like when you're pushing, you feel like that strain, that like
Yep, stretching. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I think at that point it took over and it was more fetal,
Mm-hmm.
I would say. Yeah, that's a great question.
And I think it could be a combination of all the things,
Yeah, like
right?
I want to
Like
say
being.
both, even. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. I've
Yeah.
seen those videos of those babies just flying out. It wasn't necessarily like that, but yeah.
How long do you think you said a half an hour of like actively from
Yeah.
starting to push until he was born? Okay.
Yeah, I have a hard time saying a half hour though, because it's like that whole 4 hours before is what leads to that half hour. So
Yes.
yeah, I
Yes.
guess a half
What does
hour.
that even really mean?
Yeah.
Hmm. Exactly. Oh, Sabrina asks, do you feel like your labor and birth represents Cypress's personality, like who he has become thus far? Do you feel like it shows up or has shown up in his birthing experience?
That's a cool question. Yeah, I mean, he's
Yeah.
pretty fiery. He was born in front of the
Mhm.
fire. He's a fire sign. Um,
He's an Aries.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say absolutely now that I think about it. Uh-huh. Quick entry. He's like a little athletic kid, so it was like, yeah, quick and easy, and yeah. I mean, I should also get into the fact that like I had the foundation of being healthy. I had the foundation of like maintaining physical activity during my pregnancy too. Like I was way more active with Cypress versus my second Ronan. Like my
Okay.
second pregnancy, I found myself to be very easy on my body, very like gentle on my body. Whereas
Hmm.
Cyprus, I think I went a little like, I mean, I was younger then, I was 28. So again, I felt invincible. So here I was like biking to work. I biked from our farm to my work, which was in Coburg, TNS Health Food Store. And like we live in the rolling hills of Northumberland. And here I was like 6 months pregnant. I don't like necessarily carry huge, so that helps
Yeah.
too. Like the weight I gained was basically the weight of the baby plus like maybe 10, 15 pounds. So overall 25, 30 pounds is what I gained. So that helped, I think. And anyways, I felt with Cyprus, I was at a much different physical uh, standard or physical level
Hmm.
versus with my second,
Hmm.
where with my second, I felt, yeah, I've just had a whole different approach on how I'm treating my body, because somewhere in between Cyprus and my second baby, I did have some back issues. and just making sure to yeah, read my body a bit differently and better now that I am getting older. I'm 34, but I'm getting older, so
Motherhood teaches you that because you give so much to your kid as a mom that you do kind of lose sight of you lose sight of your own goals and your own health, and then that stuff comes knocking on the door and screams at you to circle back.
that's what I
You
think.
got to
Yeah,
take care.
I think I miss some signals because of my invincibility. Like I think it can kind of fog your mind. Like I had such a good birth. I had so much support post birth. I was on such this high,
Right.
thinking like, oh wow, this whole motherhood thing is great, which it was. But like on year two, so Cyprus was 2 or 2.5 even. I was starting to have back issues. I was starting to have teeth issues, which ended up being like demineralization.
Yep.
So there was a few things that I think I could have supported myself better on, which was maybe like, well, first of all, nutrition. Like I certainly would have upped
Mm-hmm.
my mineral intake a bit more or a lot more. I wasn't even like that aware of how minerals affected your body with my first pregnancy. So now with my second, I did up my minerals. I was doing way more bone broths, way more organ meats, and just
Yeah,
generally eating better. Hmm?
you've been doing so well. Like you remind me to maybe take care of myself.
Oh, good, good. Yeah. So, yeah, you certainly like you learn something from every birth. Yeah, absolutely. And so my second was
How
like, yeah, the
long? Um, we had a question about how long until your placenta came with
with
Cyprus.
Cyprus, it was quick. It was like 10 minutes after.
Oh,
So yeah, like right
wow.
away they moved me from the pool to our bed, which we did the whole liner so that the blood doesn't leak through the bed.
Mhm.
And I breastfed. He latched right away, which was great. And I had one tinsy wincy tear, enough for the midwife to say like, "You're okay. Like we don't have to worry about stitching this."
Amazing.
And um, yeah, I hardly really noticed the placenta being born at that point. Just kind of slipped
Yeah.
out.
What time is it? Yeah. And you would have been like taking in your baby
Yeah, yeah.
and then so did you guys just kind of settle into bed? He was breastfeeding, they finished up, they cleaned up packed their bags, and we're like, okay, we'll see you tomorrow.
Yep, yep. Exactly. We had a baby now. Oh my God. And yeah, we made it work. We lived in this tiny little space. Our yurt was 20 feet by 25 by 25 feet. So we co-slept in the queen bed, which was our bed in the yurt. And we have that same bed now, and we don't even co-sleep. Like Tyler doesn't even sleep in the bed with me and Ronan because we have a bigger
Now.
house now. And yeah. But we were younger then, and we co-slept in a queen bed. And I mean, when Cypress was almost a year, that's when we're like, okay, let's get a little floor mattress. So we did the whole floor mattress thing and put a pillow on the side. And we had like a little tiny little rocker thing too. I think I might have had a side bed for a bit, but didn't even use it, like a little side bassinet,
Yeah.
which is what I'm doing
Yeah.
now. I have this little side bassinet that's there, but Ronan's not even in it. He's
Yeah.
with me.
Funny the things that it's similar, like what do you really need for baby, right? Like what do you really need for pregnancy? What do you really need for birth? And then what do you really need postpartum for your baby? And some of those tools some people use and it works. And other people are like, didn't touch it.
Yeah.
It wasn't for us.
It doesn't mean I'm not going to use it. It's there in case I need it, but it has
Yeah.
been attempted a few times and it hasn't worked. But
And
yeah,
so how after like taking in your experience and that you did get to have your yurt birth with the midwives and you didn't have to go to any plan Bs or call in for, you know, changes of the plan. How did that feel?
10 more minutes, Dad. I feel great. Holy high, like so high. I definitely like it was pretty cool. The midwives ended up thanking me like the
Wow.
next appointment. The midwife who kind of challenged it, I guess, who briefly challenged it. It was like the slightest resistance. She ended up thanking me and saying that that kind of like revived her midwifery midwifery love, you know, like you have
Wow.
this vision, I'm sure, going into being of service to women of like, yeah, ways to birth, and I'm sure like seeing a woman in her full power is pretty
Mm,
liberating to you as the midwife to witness that. So to have moved her enough to bring tears to her eyes, that was freaking cool. Like I'm thankful for
wow.
that. The kind of weird thing about midwifery though is you don't stay in contact with them really after. So it's like
Yeah.
they were there for like this really special moment in your life and then they're gone. They're just gone. It's just this little fleeting moment. Thank you, you little angel, and they're gone. I mean, that was my experience with
Hmm.
these midwives. I know like we all have our own story, but yeah, I, life just flowed. We were a
I think
family of
that is.
three and it worked.
Yeah, and I think there's something also so beautiful about being a young family, like not an age necessarily, but just like that beginning of going from two to three and like not necessarily having like the house and the mortgage and the this, that, you know, and owning the farm and all those things they say we're supposed to have.
Yeah.
And there's something so beautiful in like having
Yeah.
less and like walking together.
Yeah.
And now it's different.
We missed that
Go
time
ahead.
in our life for sure when times were simple, when we could like the walls were not thick. We could hear all the animals in the forest. We heard the coyotes at night. They were probably only like 100 feet from the yurt. Like, yeah, it was totally a different time. But yeah, I do think like Sabrina asked how that resonates to who Cypress is. I think he's going to be a very, or he already is a very hands-on kid, and
Mm-hmm.
just he's going to be very he's helpful especially with like the survival type of things. So, and he has an interest in it too. He loves going in the forest with Tyler and they go and explore and make little fires and build things, and he jumps on things like he's a monkey. So it definitely resonates.
It'll be interesting to see how people that watch this now think about their birth and their baby and
Yeah.
the challenges and successes that have come and shown up in their little people. That'll be really interesting to see that feedback. I think that's
Yeah, I
cool. So
think like
did that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say part of it too is like your mind sometimes says if they can do it, I can do it. Like I remember thinking that as
Mhm.
well in my more like uncomfortable moments of contraction of like, you know, your mind goes to stories, and yeah, you think of the people in your life or the people that I brought into my life and allowed into my life who did give these births naturally, and if you can like use that as an anchor, that is helpful too, to think, you know, if they did it, I can do it too. So
Absolutely.
if you can give birth in a slightly off grid yurt, you can too naturally at home or at the hospital naturally, whatever. So yeah, there was no point in time where I wanted any of the offerings that the midwives have on hand, and my mind didn't even go there, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Wow. How did that influence your journey with, just to kind of catch us up to your most recent birth experience? How did Cypress's birth influence your next son's birth and your choices around that?
So yeah, next son's birth was the same property, but now in our the home that's on the farm, and again in a pool. So right away I knew I wanted to do the pool. I wanted to do the home birth. I wanted to be close to our door with the option to go outside into nature, and
Mm-hmm.
just knowing all that was available to me, plus like the less complicated part of it not being off grid and also it being July.
Yes.
I basically just had no doubt in my mind that I couldn't do it. Like I was just like, yeah, this is gonna be easy.
Oh,
So again, the confidence, thanks to the foundation of my first birth and all of these practices I've been doing to set me up to this situation. Um, yeah, and it ended up being that I. So yeah, I guess it's important to say that, or maybe not important to say, but your water doesn't necessarily break first. So with
right.
my
It's
first,
actually more rare for that to
yeah,
happen.
which I didn't necessarily know, like it wasn't something that was really a focused conversation from the midwives, but with my first, my water broke and right away went into contractions and soon after very active labor. So with my second, I didn't experience that. It was just the
Right.
slow wave, like the slow waves. Okay. So I got woken up at 1 a.m. to the slow waves, enough for me to go back to sleep. And then it was 4 a.m. and I drew a bath, kept track of the contraction waves, and they had started picking up. By that point, it was like 6 a.m. and I was on the little ball. Tyler was sleeping in the living room, which was eventually where I was going to give birth. So I kicked him out of the living room. I was like, "You go sleep. I need to go labor some more."
Anywhere but
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
like I just
Please.
don't want to be around anyone. So that's kind of more me. Didn't want to be around anyone. And Cypress was sleeping, which was nice. And I took the ball and I brought it on the deck. So I was on the deck for probably another hour. And I guess it was enough for Tyler to, I might have been moaning. Tyler came up and checked on me. And right as he was checking on me, that's when I was about to pick up my phone and call the midwife. So at that point, it was like 7:30, 8 a.m. And I told the midwife what was going on. And she was just like, "Cool, okay, can I have my breakfast first?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, great." So she came like half hour, 45 minutes later, and she
Mhm.
checked my dilation. I was 8 centimeters dilated. And I had no
Oh,
idea. Like, I just had no idea. Like, so for,
that's what
yeah,
happens when you prepare. I'm just going to say it. That is what happens when moms and families prepare for
yeah,
birth and they
yeah,
put in the work that you put
it
in.
really is an intention. And it really is like, yeah, like this little seed that you're beyond the baby seed, like your outer world,
Yes.
you're preparing the space. It's this little project that you're passively working on for the 10 months the baby's in you. And yeah, you want to set yourself up for success.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
So
it makes a huge difference. I've seen it in time and time again when people prepare, they have much shorter, more like, I don't know what the word is. Everything just like goes tickety
aligns.
boo,
Yeah.
And when my clients in the past haven't done a lot of prep work, they are the watch pot that never boils, and we end up in a C-section.
They're scattered, right? Yeah, because they're not feeling prepared. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not their fault. It's nothing they intentionally did to themselves. It's just
Yeah.
that this idea that like this all happens naturally, so just do it and
Yeah.
it will go well for you.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
not the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Preparing for this like this portal experience, the physicality of birth,
The envisionment.
the mental, yeah, all these things that it's not just this simple natural thing that happens. It's an all-encompassing otherworldly experience.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it came down to too for me. Both. Yeah. So, anyways, Ronan was born pretty quick too. A little bit of a longer process because the water hadn't broke, which in the
Right.
which in the end I actually asked for them to break. So it was hitting very close to the end. I think it was like 7.5 hours in of like very manageable waves of contraction, but I felt like something was stopping it. And I guess it was my water. And so I actually asked them. They didn't hint at it at all.
Okay.
I was like,
Okay.
I feel like I want my water to break. Like, and this wasn't even something I had studied before or looked into. It was something I asked in the moment. I was like, what even happens when you break the water? Like how, like I was laboring asking this question, and she's like, well, if anything, like it'll happen really quick and you never know, and you could be more likely to tear, or not. Like it could just, the baby could arrive sooner and you could maybe not be exhausted, which is what I was looking for at this point, was to like not be exhausted and potentially it leading to a whole other situation that I didn't want to be in. So
Yeah.
for me at the time, it felt right to ask them to break my water. And
At it. Like you led that
yeah,
conversation and it sounds like they were fairly neutral, like, yeah, this is what could happen.
yeah,
We can do this. And then there's a variety of experiences that may happen afterwards.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I was hoping that it wouldn't be worse. Like, yeah, crazy intense. It was manageable. So my water broke
Okay.
and it absolutely made a difference. There was like that tension that was gone. I had a lot of tension down there. And
Mm,
and the next round of, or maybe it was like two after, the next round of contractions, two after, is when I was able to breathe and push him out. And so that
Wow.
when I
Yeah.
caught him, they had actually suggested, because I was on my hands and knees, they'd suggested that I go on my butt, and that was not comfortable at all in the water. And so I had
Mm-hmm.
turned back around to my hands and knees, and that's the way I birthed him. And yeah, I caught him, so they helped maneuver him, and then once I had him, I had gone on my back.
Yes. Oh, beautiful.
And I'm so sad because Tyler filmed it, but my midwife's butt was in it the whole time. But I was thinking it'd be cool to even take like tidbits of the voice, you know, because there's some parts of me like
Yeah.
screaming and moaning, and I think there's a few parts I was yelling, "Mama!" I don't know where that came from, but I was yelling, "Mama!" So
That's
yeah,
oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, I think that especially for women who haven't given birth before, the sounds that you will make are so, I don't know if you experience them as like primal,
yeah,
like if you would describe them as that. But yeah, I think that's a pretty a word that encompasses the experience of these sounds that come out of you.
yeah,
They're so just like a part of being a woman too, but they're very animalistic. And they're so helpful. That
yeah,
was my mantra I would say, in my birth experiences was like those low
yeah,
sounds. That's what I sunk like my little hook into and was like, okay, if I can just keep with those low sounds, then I'll get through it.
yeah,
But I think women don't know that that's going to happen.
yeah,
And it scares them. And I think that they also close up when they hear
yeah,
themselves making the noise
yeah.
if they're struggling with being seen and being witnessed in the process.
Yeah, they're gonna be more tense. Yeah, for sure.
But
Yeah.
if you
I
know, hey, you might make these very interesting sounds.
yeah,
And if you watch birth videos, right, or you hear them, it can normalize the experience and be like, okay, I'm prepared. I might make some crazy sounds,
yeah.
everybody, but it's going to be healthy.
Yeah, yeah. That's why the self-study is good and why it's good to have a community of women around you who have given birth or, you know, yeah, go down that little rabbit hole of home births.
Yes. Rutabaga Ranch asks, did Cypress participate in this birth with Ronan? And what was his impression of seeing you in that like intensity if he was there?
Yeah, so I was in the birth pool at the point that Cypress woke up, and it was like still a super manageable contraction stage. So it was like 7:30 at that point. And by the time Ronan came out, it was 9 or it was 11. I'm mixing the numbers up here. I think it was 9 or 11 when he came up. But either way, Cypress was up for about 2 hours before Ronan came. So Cypress woke up. He came and hung out around the birth pool. And my midwife made a point, not that day, but a whole other day, to say like she's noticed in her past when the siblings are around, it can go one of two ways. It can make the mom super comfortable, or it can kind of like
Yes.
be in between, or it can make the mom super like tense. And I'd say it was probably more the in between. I didn't feel tense, but I think your body naturally can't avoid going into like this other state when your other child, your
Mm-hmm.
living child, your earth side child is around.
Yeah.
So, and even
Sad
though
child.
Tyler was, yeah, even though Tyler was there and everything, like my body, yeah, it still felt like, hey, there's my other baby. And now the focus was definitely like taken away a little bit. So,
I think
um,
you go into mom mode, right? What do you
yeah,
need, son? Are you okay? Can he hear me like this? Does he need to eat? Like you
yeah,
can't but help, but mother him in that moment.
yeah. Even though I was in the pool, like I think my mom, like just subconsciously that happens, and even subconsciously, my mom was like, I don't want him to hear me like being in pain. Like I was still moaning, absolutely still moaning, but I I don't think that was a huge thought in my mind, but I guess subconsciously that was going on. And it was enough for Tyler to, without even talking to me, to text the neighbor whose Headwaters farm, Tony, and Tony was also a part of this birth too. He was
Love
like,
it.
I'm on hand, let me
Tony.
know if you need anything. So Tyler texted Tony. Tony came and swiped him up in
Mhm.
his little gator farm vehicle, and they went for a little forest adventure. And by the time Cypress got to the
Amazing.
forest, I don't think they were there that long. Tyler texted them that they can come back because the baby was born. So By the time Cyprus left, I think it was like a half hour, 45 minutes later. So I think there, like, part of
Yeah.
it was my body was able to relax a little bit more for sure when Cyprus wasn't
Yeah,
there. But it was
I think
cool
so
for
for sure.
him to see, like, yeah, mommy in the water, mommy laboring a little bit. Um, and then, yeah, right away came back. That was awesome.
And probably had such a fun time with this neighbor. And like,
Yeah.
what I love about you is the community that you have around you. And I love like hearing these stories and witnessing it. And ooh, I got chills. Like just knowing it makes me more emotional, but like knowing that you can rely on your neighbors and that they will follow through and like be there for you is huge. And I think that, you know, we're all collectively trying to rebuild this community. So it's really important to hear that, you know, thank you, Tony, for showing up and creating that space for you to easily, with more ease, I guess, to have Ronan and to be part of your birth experience.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's not what, like, not a lot of people have that. Oh, you don't cry that often. That's
Yeah,
so
it's
good.
emotional.
Yeah, not a lot of people have that aspect to their birth for sure. Like, whether like the community is your family, which my family's so supportive too. I'm just not in the position to necessarily want my family nearby when I'm giving birth, but they're there right away after. So, um, yeah, like all of that too is the foundation, like feeling that support and love from your family, from your community, from your friends,
Yeah.
from your midwives, doulas, all that. That's you've got this little team of cheerleaders. And I should also make it clear that for both of my births and or both of my pregnancies, um, I had what is it called? Blessing Ways. I had Blessing Ways organized. So the first
Yeah.
one, my neighbor Linda, who's Tony's wife, she had hosted and organized, and then the second one I had organized and asked my friends to lead. So I did the whole invite list, but then they led. So I think that's important too for envision, like
Yeah.
mental. What's the word I'm
Preparation.
looking for? Hmm?
But like the preparation work that you did, that was part of
Yeah,
it. Maybe
yeah,
even subconsciously, to be like, I have all these people in my
yeah.
corner.
Like, I got this. They're all my little
I know
cheerleaders. Yeah,
Meredith, who's going to share her birth story in our series, said community over everything else is motherhood. Um,
yeah,
and I know I was at the Blessing Way, and I was like part of why I get emotional is because I haven't experienced a lot of that in my life, like that follow through and that true like unconditional support and love. Something that I really crave and desire. And so when I was at your Blessing Way, I was like,
yeah,
what is happening?
yeah.
Like, look at all these women here. And they're like legit doing this.
Yeah, yeah, they're into this. They must love her. Oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
seriously,
it
a
doesn't
lot of
happen overnight.
love. And like,
It
mm-hmm.
helps that my business is very much out there. I'd say most of those people were friends through business, which
Yeah.
is super helpful. But that's kind of the cool thing about our business is yeah, like our customers are the people who I would want to be my friends. So it just works
Are
out
your
that
friends?
way.
100%.
Yeah.
I
So
think
not
it's so
every
beautiful.
business
And
has
I
that.
think we've been pushed like there's a lot of if you go into what's really interesting about your story as well is being like a female farmer and a woman in business. But you know, when we talk about like marketing and business, it's like it very much doesn't want you to be friends with your customers. But for me, that's the situation, the experience that I've had with most of my clients. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, we become,
Yeah.
and that's with
That's your
the
community.
yeah, and the radical having the radical mother gatherings at your farm has really like continued to blow me out of the water with I can also even though I'm facilitating something and in that position of leadership sort of it's like I can also step in as community member and say hey guys I'm having a hard time
Yeah.
can you help
Yeah.
and you all showed up and I was like this feels really lovely
Yeah.
to just to receive right so it's really neat that I love being part of your world in so many ways. But you really are the community that you've created and that you know you've shared with us, and even in this story is really beautiful. So
Oh, thank you.
just wanted to
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, like, why would we want a business that we ourselves can't even represent as us authentically? So that's what we've strived to build here. There's a lot of other farms out there with like their own little vibes and models, and yeah, I guess our foundation and ours is like, this is our family. You want to eat our food that we're growing for you, take it or leave it. But hopefully you can be our friend too. So like, yeah, I want a bit more intimacy for sure with our customers. And I mean, not all, of course, but there's certain ones that we let into our close
Mhm.
circle. And like, yeah, it's kind of what keeps us going, because yeah, we need a lot to keep us going in this industry.
Absolutely. In life in
And
general, especially as a
yeah,
mom.
not just this industry, just this world. My God.
Thankfully, we have stories like yours and examples of different ways that we can go about being humans in this world. And I think that's going to inspire a lot of people. Sabrina said that she was inspired to think about having a birth tub and a home birth based on your story. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how people resonate with his story and if they're like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I'm
Yeah, I
excited.
guess I want to put it out there. I can't even see people's comments or anything, but I wish I could. I guess I can see them after, but I want to put it out there, like, because not all of this is the most accessible things for people, whether it's financially or whether they actually know someone, because I did know people in my life with my first pregnancy who had home births. So that helped me. And I just want to put it out there that if anyone wants to reach out, of course, I would love to talk to you if you need that type of support. I can be your friend. Let's be friends. Because
That's
nowadays, that's
really
how you
nice.
make friends. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. If anyone has any more questions for Erin, let us know. I think there's one more. Did Ronan require any kind of intervention from the midwives once he was born? Was there what kind of things did they do? Did they
I mean,
interrupt the process at all?
they knew who I was because of my first birth and everything. So I denied everything, was what I did, everything. And that was it. So no intervention. I did delay umbilical cord cutting. So
Okay.
um,
What
there's
did that look
that.
like? There's all kinds of versions of what delay means.
I mean, mine was very quick, I would say. Like, I'm not like the one to wait until it stops pulsing. I could have been that, but I wasn't.
Yeah, so
I don't
there's
really have an
like
opinion on that. I think like makes total sense to me, but I never really delved into researching that. Like I did feel good about delaying it, so I kind of left that up to the midwife,
okay,
and
gotcha.
it would have been like, I'd say about 45 minutes after it was born. Maybe that's like really quick. I have no
Four
concept.
to 5 minutes?
45.
45. Oh, until you clamped it and cut it?
Yeah.
I would say that's very long.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
normal practice would be, I think they're supposed to wait a minute and a half now,
Okay.
and then if you ask for a delay, they might wait like 30 more seconds. Again, depends on your care provider, depends on
Yeah.
your experience. Um, if you said, so there's a phrase called like wait for weight, which is basically like the cord, all the blood transfers from the placenta to the baby,
Yeah.
and so the cord gets all, instead of tight and gelatinous and springy, it starts to like loosen out more like a sausage casing,
Yeah.
and because
Yeah.
all of the blood has gone to the baby and it turns white because underneath that was we were seeing the oxygenated
Yeah.
blood or whatever. I'm mixing it all up. But anyways, um, all the lovely things go to baby. So that would be like probably as long as
Time.
it takes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait for white is a term that moms are taught to say with care providers that we want to see the cord is white and long and thin instead of purple and blue and pink and
Okay.
juicy
I
because
could
that
be
means
way off
baby's
for
got
time
everything.
then. I could be way off for time, because it was
Who
never
knows? It's all
really a conversation. It was never something. I think if I had like a doula like you for my birth, that would have come up for sure, I'm sure, with you. But that's never
yeah.
something I really researched or got into myself.
Yeah,
But
but it's cool. I feel like they trusted you so much, and they're like, yeah, we'll just let her hang out, and then we'll as long as everything's okay, we'll just bring it up when we're ready to cut it.
Yeah, like I feel like they get the vibe off of the mom and what they want, and certainly because of my history with my first, yeah. But besides that, like nothing else was pushed or suggested from what I remember. What are
And
they
did he
moving?
latch well? And
Yeah,
you guys,
yeah, good.
then yeah,
Yeah, right
yeah.
away. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, I don't see any more
Yeah.
questions. I think we'll wrap it up here. But thank you so
Yeah.
much for being the first one to share as well.
No problem. I'm excited for them all. I'm gonna be home all week watching them at 12 o'clock.
Yeah, so we're gonna have every weekday, so we'll take the weekend
Okay,
off so we can be with our
weekday.
families, but weekday for the next 11 days, we'll have a story from a new mom. We've got quite a different range of experiences from people to explore, and we actually have 14 women who are going to share their stories. So 2 of those days will be doubled up. So stay tuned, follow along with my account, Radical Mother Wellness, to catch when those are going to be. I'll release everybody's little, poster on the day of, and we'll tune in again at 12 on those days to hear more stories.
Cool.
Well,
Thank
thank
you,
you so much,
everyone.
Erin,
Vanessa.
everyone
Yes.
for joining us. Have a good day.
My dad was just calling
Bye.
again. Bye.
Bye, Dad.